a conference for the National Association of Black Journalists, where Trump questioned whether Vice President Kamala Harris is black. We'll show you that moment and the defiant response from the Trump campaign to the widespread criticism and outrage about the former president's appearance. We'll also have reaction from Vice President Harris, who was on the campaign trail in Texas, speaking at a historically black sorority event. And then Donald Trump's day ended with a rally in Pennsylvania, his first event in that state since the assassination attempt against him. We'll play for you his joke about the widow of the man who died at that rally last month. And we'll bring you the very latest out of the Middle East, following the killings of a Hezbollah commander in Lebanon and the political leader of Hamas in Iran. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Thursday, August 1st. We are now in August. I'm Jonathan Lemire, along with the BBC's Caddy Kay. We are in for Joe, Mika, and Willie. And joining us this morning, we have MSNBC contributor Mike Barnicle, president of the National Action Network and host of MSNBC's Politics Nation, Reverend Al Sharpton, member of the New York Times editorial board, Mara Gay, managing editor at The Bulwark, Sam Stein, and MSNBC contributor and author of the book How the Right Lost Its Mind, Charlie Sykes. And Caddy, we have a jam-packed show this morning, but we have to start with Donald Trump's appearance yesterday at this conference of black journalists, where, as we just showed, right from the first moment, he went on the attack. He was deeply confrontational, deeply offensive, and no more so when he questioned whether his opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris, was herself black.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to August being a quiet news month, but clearly that one's not going to happen. Here we are at the beginning of what is meant to be all of our summer holidays. And as you say, it's going to be a jam-packed show. Not just, by the way, in the US. There's so much happening in the Middle East as well, and we're going to get to that too. But let's start at that conference where the former president was combative with the moderators when they confronted him on issues dealing with race. When asked about Vice President Kamala Harris, Donald Trump questioned her racial identity, as John just said. He also claimed again that immigrants were taking so-called black jobs.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words
then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question,
no,
a very direct question.
Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She is always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is...
I think somebody should look into that, too, when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans have said?
I really don't know. I really don't know. Could be. There are some, and there are plenty.
Why come here? What is your message today?
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And they're taking the employment away from black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people.
OK, we'll get to the content of what the former president said, but that is a masterclass in interviewing. You ask the question, you ask it politely. If you don't get the answer, you ask the question again, and you keep asking the question. It was persistent and polite, exactly what journalists are meant to do. So, after spending 34 minutes on stage, Trump's team abruptly ended that interview. Trump's campaign claimed that they had to leave to attend a rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The team also blamed the shortened time on audio issues ahead of the interview, which they say led to the former president waiting backstage for 40 minutes. When asked about the backlash Trump is receiving for his comments, the campaign's communications director told NBC News, quote, "Backlash from the truth? These people must be deranged." The campaign later put out this statement that it reads in part, "Based on the unhinged and unprofessional commentary directed towards President Trump today by certain members of the media, many media elites clearly want to see us remain divided. You would think that the media would have learned something from their repeat episodes of fake outrage ever since President Trump first came down the escalator in 2015, but some just refused to get it. This will be their undoing in 2024. As I said, polite and persistent questions, exactly what we're meant to do. Trump himself also commented on the interview, writing on Truth Social that he, quote, crushed it. John, I think, the campaign's clearly still struggling. They haven't found the right way to attack Kamala Harris. At some points, they go after her policies, which seems to be the most fruitful area for them to attack the opposing candidate. But these attacks on her personally, or attacks on her race or her gender, or all black Americans' race, or all biracial people's race, which is, by the way, the fastest growing racial group in the United States, just don't seem to be landing where, I don't know if the campaign even thinks they're landing well, but they're seeming to pretend that they think they're landing well.
Yeah, certainly, as we'll get into with our panel shortly, Trump wanted that fight. He wanted to go in there and have that spectacle, that confrontation. But I don't know that it played like he thought it was going to play. I mean, certainly, there are some undecideds in this country. There are people who are just now tuning into this race. And these comments about the vice president, so deeply offensive. And to your point, Katty, show just a lack of coherent strategy right now from the Trump team. And as we'll get to later, they leaned into some of the race stuff again at the Harrisburg rally. Later, a lot of his surrogates are playing about DEI, questioning, vice president's heritage, and there's a real risk there to so many Americans who are just going to be outraged at what they hear from the Republican ticket. And it shows a campaign right now that just isn't quite sure of its footing. That is clear. So Vice President Harris was in Houston yesterday speaking to members of the Sigma Gamma Rho sorority. This is the second Divine Nine sorority Harris has addressed in a week. The vice president herself being a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha historically black sorority. At yesterday's event, she directly addressed Trump's controversial appearance earlier in the day at the NABJ conference.
Donald Trump spoke at the annual meeting of the National Association of Black Journalists. And it was the same old show. The divisiveness and the disrespect. And let me just say, the American people deserve better. The American people deserve better.
Samara, let's start with you and just get your reaction to what we heard from the former president in that venue about Vice President Harris yesterday.
I think lately Donald Trump has been trying to do his best impression of someone who actually respects women and likes black people. And now that Kamala Harris is the front runner and there's so much energy and momentum behind that campaign, and really excitement about someone who represents the future of the United States, a multiracial democracy, multiracial people are the fastest growing segment of America. I think that now Donald Trump is afraid. I think he is probably losing this election, and I think he feels that. So what he's doing is he's going back to his old playbook of racism that really propelled his campaign back in 2016 when he started talking about Mexicans as rapists. And this is really just birtherism 2.0. It's clearly offensive. I do believe he went for a confrontation. I think it was a way of saying to his base, and not just any Republicans, but to the deepest part, the most racist part of that base, don't worry. We as white Americans, we still get to define race in America. And I think it was a way of making himself feel big. I mean, I think he could not help himself. I watched that event yesterday. I usually go to NABJ conventions. I wasn't there yesterday. And it was really disturbing because, you know, what he did is he went into that room and really thumbed his nose at every journalist in that room, at every black person in America. He does not get to define who is black American. And by the way, white Americans know that Kamala Harris is black. Part of the experience of being black in America is the fact that we actually can't change the color of our skin, and we don't want to. We're proud to be black. To be black is to be American, and this is something that Donald Trump is afraid of at this point. He doesn't know, he doesn't have answers for the American people. He doesn't have anything to offer except for more racism. And that's what we've turned to. I mean, this is bankrupt, and I don't think that it's going to make him feel good. It's going to play well with that part of the base, but this is not going to expand the tent. I think this was desperate, and I think it shows that he knows he's in trouble.
Reverend Al, we've known Donald Trump for a long time. You've known him longer than I have. What we saw yesterday is just another exhibit of a badly damaged man on stage. And I don't know about you, but watching him, it occurred to me that the culture has passed him by. He's playing an old school politics that has always worked for him. Hate, envy, resentment, fear of the other. But the culture that we live in today is so accelerated that you can measure it by a stopwatch. It just moves so quickly. And his act is old. He's got an old act, and as Mara pointed out, he knows partially internally that it's old and it's not working. And now he's confronted by an opponent who has electrified the Democratic Party within a week, electrified the party. Where do you think Trump is going to go on this?
Well, first of all, what has been perplexing to me is that we've been asking the wrong question. A lot of people, when it came out that the National Association of Black Journalists had invited him, were saying, why would you invite him? The real question is, why did he accept? He accepted to go to do exactly what he did. He wanted to go and say, I will stand up to these blacks. I will put them in line. That has been the basis of his campaign. To go from Obama is not American to Harris is not black, it's the same song, just a different lyric. And that is what he feels put him in the White House in 2016, and it'll put him in the White House now. I think you're right when you say it's an old song, but if you're an old singer and you only have one song, you've got to sing it and hope the crowd likes oldies but goodies. And that's what he is doing. He went there to confront black journalists. If those black journalists, many objected, but if those black journalists on the stage thought they were going to do an interview with a presidential candidate who came to woo black voters, they were the one mistaken. He wasn't mistaken. He knew exactly. If they had opened up saying, good afternoon, Mr. Trump, we're glad to have you. How was